It's Sandy from Talk of Thailand. It's been quite some time since I've done any videos for Talk of Thailand here on YouTube, mainly because it's been very difficult to move around anywhere actually. Before the COVID started, what we're talking about 3 years ago now, or close to 3 years ago anyway, I used to go back to UK fairly regularly, maybe 3, sometimes 4 times a year. But since the COVID outbreak, I haven't been back. And it's kind of changed my thinking quite a lot about even traveling back to the UK. And I'm not so sure that I'll even get back there, even though I do severely miss my good pint of cask ale and my packet of Lion's gums, which you cannot get here. You can get the Bassett's gums a bit softer, but not anywhere near as nice as the Lion's gums. Here in Pattaya, many of the old vloggers are still going. And if you've been following them on YouTube, then you've probably seen hundreds and hundreds of pictures, videos of Soy Bacau and Soy 6 and Beach Road. And they seem to have gone into every corner of Pattaya city here because they've had no content as such to be able to develop anything much interesting, actually. And they do a lot of speculation and spreading of false news as well, making out that it's all good and it's all back together again, and Pattaya is back to where it was. Well, I'll be honest with you, Pattaya is not back to where it was ever. Before the COVID problem here in Pattaya, it was going downhill then, and people were struggling and businesses were closing then. And Pattaya just was the icing on the top of the cake that made it all collapse. And now it's struggling to get back. People that have got some money, they're revamping bars, etc., and they're trying to get it back. But at this moment, staffing's a big problem, keeping a hold of girls in the bars. I think many of the girls have found better alternatives of making money, and they haven't come back to Pattaya. And I hear many of these vloggers who've got bars saying, well, one day they've got staff and the next day they haven't. So it's kind of an awkward time for them as well. But Pattaya has changed a lot, and maybe it's for the better. I believe it is, and they're doing a lot here. It's going to make it a much more attractive place in the future. Maybe a lot of these girly bars and things will disappear. They're opening them up, but there's no real substance in the people using them. And no matter what the vloggers say and how they try to inspire you, it's not the place that it used to be. And it's still quite difficult getting around. It's getting easier to get into Thailand, but well, we'll leave it at that. I think it's changing in a big way. So I've made up my mind to start making more videos again about Thailand and about Pattaya and about things in general, because people are interested in coming back, and I've had requests from some of my subscribers, etc. And if you haven't a subscriber, I'd very appreciate you becoming one, about what the current situation is, about accommodation, about cost of livings, about all sorts of aspects. And I'm going to start addressing these now because, as you'll find out in a minute, many things have changed with me also. This particular video, I'm talking about having a car here in Thailand, buying a car and using a car here in Thailand. And it's one of the aspects that's been requested on. People want more information, the pluses and the negatives about driving around Pattaya and Thailand in general. Actually, it's quite good news, this video, actually, for people that are thinking about buying a car. So, why have I decided to make this one my first video in a long time about buying a car? Actually, it's not just coincidence, but a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, actually, I was speaking to a Dutchman from Holland, obviously, who had just come back after more than 2 years' absence from Thailand because of the problems traveling to Thailand. And he came back, and we were sitting having something to eat and a drink in the same cafe type place, which belongs to a relation of my wife. And he was talking about he had a car that's been lying in this backyard there in the baking sun for the last 2 years. He had actually bought it for a girlfriend that he had, and he had stayed with her for quite some years. And I think they actually had a child together as well, a boy, I believe. And he bought her a car for getting around. But when they split up just before COVID, then he got the car back. And he had parked it up with not knowing that it was going to be more than 2 years for him to get back. Now then, he did get someone to go out and check it regularly and just to start it and maybe drive it around the yard. Eventually, the documentation ran out. It wasn't legally on the road. So it kind of stayed in the yard. And the problems with this car then was the baking sun really took its toll on the outside paintwork, particularly the roof of the car. And also the temperatures that must have been in there, it had an effect in the car also. The car in question was a 2006 Ford Focus 1.8 with all the mod coins. It had everything on it. It has everything on it. And had a subsequent discussion with him when we started talking about this car again. He said if I was interested, he would let me have this car at a very advantageous price, which is a very good price actually. And I immediately saw maybe the opportunity, not even having seen the inside of the car or done anything to it, but I saw the opportunity of maybe turning a few shekels by getting this car, getting it all checked out, getting it done up, and then reselling it on, because there was certainly enough margin in what he was proposing for me to make a profit on it. So I agreed to buy it, and I paid the cash, and we got the car, and that's when the problems really started. But actually, there was quite a few problems, as you would expect. A car sitting, not moving for 2 years, needed new tyres right away for a start. The tyres were badly deteriorated. The air conditioning wasn't working. Of course, it hadn't been serviced for a long time. There was other aspects as well. All the film around the windscreens and the windows, etc., had all gone funny and changed colour in the heat, and it was very difficult to see through them clearly. So all these sort of things had to be done. So in the end, it wasn't such a good buy as I thought it was going to be. But I got it all done, and then I started advertising it for sale. Now then, what you've got to understand here is that cars in Thailand maintain a very high value right through the life cycle, right down to the going vintage, actually. I think the weather out here is very kind for cars. There's no salt on the roads, etc. It's pretty dry, although it gets humid at times. It doesn't seem to affect the cars too badly. But for instance, for this type of car, this 2006 Ford Focus, which is 16 years old, you'll still get nearly £2,500 for that car here in Thailand, if it's in good condition. Top condition, I'd say you get £2,500. But even in normal condition, which I would say this one is maybe a little bit less than normal condition, 1,800 to £2,000 is probably the going price. So that's what I was kind of aiming it on. And even after all the work I'd done, I kind of guessed that I might still make a small profit on this car. The one good thing about it is the engine's perfect. It's a lovely running car. It's very quiet, very comfortable. It's very clean inside. It's just has been parked up for a long time, made a problem. So when I got it, obviously I got it all serviced immediately. I got all these film things changed on the windows. I got the air conditioning unit back into operation. Got new tires. Blah blah blah. There were several things. I was going to get it totally resprayed, but to get it totally resprayed was going to cost me about £400. And to be truthful with you, I wouldn't be prepared to spend that on a car that's 16 years old. So it's a good runner. Just today, I've had it tested in the government garage to get all its paperwork put back into order, so I can start using the car. I don't want to take it out without the proper papers in the car or with the proper paper on the windscreen. So I've decided I'm going to start using this car, and I'll use it for my videos, etc. It might come in very handy. The weekends I can take my daughter out, and we can go and make the videos together on the beaches or wherever we decide to go. So I'm looking forward to that. So I did advertise it, and as normal, you're getting silly offers for the car without people even seeing it. You know, they're getting it down to very small money. They couldn't even buy a second-hand motorbike for what they were offering for the car. So I decided, okay, I've bought it and I've spent it. I didn't really need it, but I've got it, so I'm going to use it, and that's it. So that then brought me onto the subject, well, why don't I make this video about owning a car and driving here in Pattaya or in Thailand, and let everybody know that maybe contemplating coming here in the future, settling down, maybe they want to buy a car. So here's the information that I think you need to make your decisions about that particular aspect. So first of all, let's talk about licenses. Now, for many, many years, I had an international license from the UK, which was only supposed to be valid for 6 months, but I used it for years here. When I was stopped by the police, as you regularly are when you're doing long trips across the country, etc., they'll set up roadblocks and they'll stop and check everybody. They've got a license and the papers are in order, etc. Most of the time, I was renting cars at that time, and this international license, even though it was years out of date, when the police checked it, they couldn't read English, of course, and yeah, it's an international license, you got all the stamps and things, so it worked very well. It wasn't until I decided to retire, which is going back about 7 years ago now, that I actually got a proper Thai driving license. Now then, getting the Thai driving license, all I had to do was, I think I needed a paper from immigration, because it's only available to certain immigration classifications. I don't really know what they are at the moment. I know people that travel in and out on 60-day and 90-day visas, and people like myself, retired, married or whatever, and living in Thailand most of the time, no problem for getting a Thai license. And when I went to get it, I showed my British license to the Thai offices here, where you do these sort of things. And when they saw my British license, then they issued me with a Thai driving license without having to take any test, etc. I still had to pay something for it. And they also offered me at that time a free motorbike license as well, but I'd never ridden a motorbike in my life, and I had no intention of doing so. So I declined their offer of a Thai motorbike license and just got my car license, which the initial one was valid for 2 years. And then after the 2-year period, and you were sort of driving okay and there's no problems, then the next one's a 5-year license. And even when you go back to renew your license, at the test center, they give you a short test, not driving the car, but you sit in a chair in this office with some foot pedals in front of you. And first of all, you've got to, they put you through recognition of colors. They keep changing the colors on this box from red to orange to, or amber, I should say, to green and back again. And you have to keep telling them which color it was on. And then they had another test where you're sitting there and you got your feet near these pedals, and when the light goes to red, you've got to depress these pedals as quickly as you can, and within a period of a few seconds, as though you were doing an emergency braking. It's not difficult; it's easy done, but it's a little bit when you're, there's maybe about 30 or 40 people all waiting to do this at the same time. And it's a little bit intimidating, I think. I did see several people failing it, etc. So it was no problem getting my license renewed. I did just forget, actually, when I got my initial license, I did have to watch a video and then answer a questionnaire about various scenarios that you might see on the road and various road signs you might see on the road. That wasn't a problem either, because you can research this on the internet, and you can see all they're going to ask you on the internet, and you just practice it. It needs to be practiced because there is some dubious questions in there, and if you go through it, you'll understand the dubious questions when you see them. Many people I saw going there without trying to look on the internet and thought they know all the road signs and they know the highway codes and all the rest of it. No, they thought they'd have no problem. But the way the questions are worded, as I say, they're a bit dubious, a bit unclear. So many people failed on their first attempt, and they had to go away and do a bit of research and watch these training exercises on the internet. So that's licenses. As I say, the initial 2 years, second one 5 years. You don't actually have to do a driving test if you've got a UK, European, USA, one of the main countries, if you've got a driving license from there. The only one I've heard, and I don't understand why, is Australia an exception. I heard that before, and I haven't had it confirmed, but just be aware, if you're Australian, you might have to take a test. And that's it, that's the licenses aspect that I wanted to tell you about. So let's go on and talk about driving in Thailand. Now then, that's a very big subject, driving in Thailand, actually. And it's if you've driven in many countries in the world, on the left side and the right side, etc. The good thing for the UK people is in Thailand, they drive on the same side of the road as the UK. So that makes life for us a lot easier also when we come to Thailand and we start driving here. The main problem we have is that the Thai people, the majority of their driving skills are very, very poor. There are some good drivers, yes, I'll admit that, and people that are employed as taxi drivers, etc. I think they are okay, and they certainly know how to drive here in Thailand. But the rules of the road go out the window. When you're on the motorways, you can overtake on any side and weave in and out, and you see it all. It's a bit hair-raising, I would say, driving here in Thailand. In the cities, when you've got all the motorbikes and everything, and in Bangkok, when you've got motorbikes and tuk-tuks and etc., then it's a lot more difficult, and you really have to have your wits about and really watching and careful what you do. As is most things in Thailand, if you make a mistake and you have a problem and you do something wrong, everything can be sorted with money. And if you've done something wrong and it's your fault, then money will sort it. Maybe not only to the problem that the person that's been done some injustice to, but maybe some of his supporting people behind him will need to be paid off as well. And that's just a fact of life here in Thailand. I think it's a big revenue scheme for a lot of people, the motoring side of things, and you've got to be aware of it. Things like roundabouts. At one time, Pattaya had the only roundabout in Thailand. It is called the Dolphin Roundabout, and it's in the bottom of the main North Road going down into the Bay Area. And it was always a point of conversation about how Thais tried to negotiate the roundabout. They had no idea how a roundabout works in most countries, and it was just chaos. When the traffic was busy, the roundabouts were chaos and totally locked up instead of helping the flow of traffic as it's supposed to. Nowadays, we see a few more roundabouts cropping up, and I think people are getting a bit better at being able to maneuver on roundabouts, etc. And also giving way and checking. It is getting a little bit more safer, I would say. but as I said earlier, you can never afford when you're driving here to let your guard down. All sorts of crazy things have happened. Motorcycles on the wrong side of the road, coming up and turning around in front of you as you're pulling out. And as soon as they see there's a European, etc., involved, then the money signs go on and they start pleading poverty, etc. So, for instance, one instance I had last year, I think it was, maybe the year before, when a motorcycle done exactly that and came round in front of me as I was beginning to pull out. Fortunately, I caught her out the corner of my eye, and I braked, but it did touch a motorbike and it knocked it over. So she was screaming that it was my fault, etc. And I said, okay, let's get the police. I got a video in my pickup, and also get the insurance people involved. So, of course, they had no insurance. So the police came along, the insurance agent came along, and yes, everybody agreed that I was in the right, but they all said, well, as I'm a foreign European, then I've got more money than the poor lady that's been knocked off her motorbike and it's been a bit scratched. So maybe I should give her some compensation. And it dragged on around. So that cost me 500 baht, which is, I don't know, about £12, I suppose, about $15. So that was a penalty. But that will now bring me on to another aspect. The other aspect is insurance. Now then, insurances, let me explain this to you. When you go and you register your car and get your book made up, etc., your registration book, every time you renew your road license, it goes in your registration book. And you also have to pay for Thai government insurance, which you get a sticker to put on your windscreen to show that you've got Thai government insurance, which isn't worth very much. And you cannot, I don't even know what the benefits of it are. I just know you've got to pay for it. But most people, and when I say most people, I mean most expats, people living here, we get an additional insurance. Now you can get a first class and a second class insurance. Now, I always run with the first class insurance. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's excellent, and I would strongly recommend that everybody gets it. The strange thing about the insurance is, if I take it, like when I got first class insurance on my pickup, then it covers any driver, as long as I've got the insurance policy and they've got a driving license, because when the insurance man comes along, he'll ask to see their license. But it covers anybody that's got a driving license. But a lot of Thai people don't have driving licenses, even though they can buy them without a test in the normal Thai manner. So the first class insurance is excellent. It covers for all sorts of things, same like a good European insurance, and it works very, very well. I think I've had maybe 2 or 3 slight problems, not big, expensive problems, but the insurance have sorted them out every time, and no problem. But I have known a lot of people that's had sort of major problems with their vehicles when it's been their fault. And when they've come to renew their insurance, they've been refused first class insurance and then offered second class insurance, which is like in the UK, like a third party insurance, where it will cover everything for other people, but very limited cover for yourself or your own vehicle, because they see you as a bigger risk. So that's the insurances, as I say, first and second class, and the government insurance. Also, when you get your registration document made up so you can drive on the road, because this car I bought from this guy was over 7 years old, then I've got to get it tested every year, and it goes in to have its registration book made up. And we done that today, and the test cost 800 baht, which is roughly 16, 17 pounds, thereabouts, $20, let's say. And they done the normal things. They inspected under the car, around the car, checked all the lights, checked the exhaust, put it on a ramp, checked the brakes, etc. And all that was done. And as I say, that cost me 800 baht on top of the normal annual registration for the registration book and the Thai government insurance. That cost me today around about 1,300 baht, actually, maybe slightly more. Certainly not more than 1,500 baht, which once again is just over £30. So for a year's motoring, that's fairly cheap, I think, compared with the UK, and not too bad at all. But you have to be aware also that there's a lot of run-down vehicles on the road and motorbikes, etc., that causing a lot of problems. And none of these people have got any other insurance. Most of them haven't even got the Thai government insurance because they don't register their vehicles. So it can be a bit hairy, and it can be a bit problematic if you do have an accident with another car and it's their fault. A friend of mine, just 2 months ago, he was on his motorbike actually, when he was coming back. He'd been out exercising. He was driving back to where he lives, and the road was busy, and this motorbike, driven by a drunken Thai, came through between the parked cars, straight out, and hit him on the side, knocked him off his bike, broke a few of my mate's ribs, and he didn't have any insurance. But the other motorists that had been round, that he actually made to run away, and nobody stopped him. But I'm sure many people clocked the registration of the motorbike, and he must have thought about that. So when my friend's still lying on the road and trying to get his thoughts together, the guy came back again, and he was obviously a little bit intoxicated, and he told my friend, "Okay, I'll pay for your hospital bills and I'll pay for the repair of your motorbike. Please don't get the police involved." And he did pay for the motorbike, and my friend didn't actually go to hospital with his broken ribs. He just strapped himself up, and he got better by himself. So that's the sort of thing that can happen here. People get caught out. Also, and it's worth me mentioning this, to people who are going to maybe hire a car and not having their insurances, etc. And even if you have your insurance, I'm not so sure it's going to cover you much for any hospitalizations. If it's the other person's fault, I think you stand a good chance of getting your hospital bills paid, maybe just in a government hospital. But I've seen many people here totally screwed up, whether they've been on holiday, even people living here, because they've got no insurances. They're in a minor accident, they break a leg or something. One guy just 3 weeks ago, he broke a leg, he had to have a plate put in, etc. And it cost nearly 600,000 baht. Well, that's a lot of money, 40 baht to the pound. So 600,000, 15,000, yeah, 15,000 pounds or something like that. A lot of money, and it can screw people up, and it can screw their lives up, and it can cause a lot of people to leave Thailand because they can't afford to get the medical treatment here. So that's insurances, and one of the considerations you've got to make. So let's move on to the other motoring aspects here in Thailand. And the next one is fuel. Now then, this is one of the good news actually. Although the fuel prices are rising here in Thailand, I've got my normal car is a pickup, a Mazda BT50, which is the same as the Ford Ranger, exactly the same machine as the Ford Ranger pickup truck. It's got a 2.5 litre engine, diesel engine, and I've had that since it's been a year old or something. Lovely machine, I like it very much. My wife loves driving it, and that runs on diesel. Now, diesel is currently capped. Ordinary diesel, not premium diesel, is currently capped. It's supposed to be 32 baht to a litre. I think it's gone up to about 33, actually, a lot of garages are selling at. But petrol or gas, as our American friends call it, that's running around just over 40 baht a litre. So 40 baht a litre is just under a pound. So I don't know really how that compares with the UK, but I believe it's a lot more favourable actually than what it is in the UK at the moment. So it's expensive for Thai people, make no bones about that. These small rises in the small costs are expensive for Thai people. And that's why the diesel's been capped, because most of the transportation around Thailand is all diesel, obviously. Here, LPG is still a very popular fuel in cars and taxis and even on the big trucks and wagons, you know. Now, it's interesting, going back to this car that I've got sitting here, this Ford Focus. The original owner ran that on LPG. Now then, one guy came to look at the car when I first advertised it, and it was an American guy, and he was thinking about buying it for his girlfriend. And as soon as he noted it had been running previously on LPG, he said he didn't want it. He said LPG destroys the engines. And I wasn't aware of this. So consequently, I looked it up on the internet, and there is people that say that they don't think it does the engines any good, where the majority say it's better for the engines because it's actually burning at a lower temperature and there's not so much internal damage on the engines. So make your own mind up. But as I say, this car's previously run on LPG and it's running as smooth as a nut now. So I don't honestly think the LPG has done too much of a problem on it. But also, and I mentioned in the UK, the Mondeo, the Ford Mondeo, and the Ford Focus are both very popular cars, and you get them. They've been round the clock a couple of times. A lot of these Mondeos and Focuses are. So they've got very good engines. Ford do make very good engines, including the diesel engines as well. So maybe that's one of the positive aspects of this car I've got. So that's fuel. Now, the final part that you're probably interested in, and there's a couple of aspects to it, is the maintenance aspect. Now then, I would firstly say that if you can, and if you've got the money, buy yourself new. It might cost you a little bit more, but at least you know the history of the car. And you know, I don't trust too many people here in Thailand that things can get clocked back and all the rest of it. So the only way you can be guaranteed that you know the history of the vehicle is to buy it new. My wife went taxiing at one stage a few years ago, and I bought her a Mazda CX-5, and I think that had a problem or two, although it hadn't been declared to me when I was going to buy it. But it turned out not too bad in the end, anyway. But when you need maintenance, then trust me, the best place to go, first of all, is to the main dealers. The main dealers here in Thailand for all the Thai-made cars, Ford, Toyota, etc., are remarkably inexpensive for the service charges. And the facilities are good. You get nice waiting lounges with coffee and sandwiches and cakes, etc. If it's only going to be an hour or two, you can sit there and relax and go on the computers or do whatever you like. And they're very, very inexpensive, as I say, and good value. And then going on to the other aspect where you've got the sort of backstreet mechanics and garages, then I'm afraid to say you have to be very, very careful. I'll tell you of a couple of instances. In actual fact, both on air conditioning, actually. My Mazda pickup was running and it started getting a noise, and I was positive it was either a bearing or one of these drive pulleys that was starting to rattle, and I was pretty sure of that. I looked into it, and it wasn't making a problem, and it was just an irritating noise. So we needed some more gas put in our air conditioning system, and when we drove it into this air conditioning place, this guy came out, and before I knew it, there was about 3 guys out, and they had the hood of the pickup open, and they were all over it. And then they came back and they said, we've got very bad news, your air conditioning, you need to replace the whole system. That's what's making the strange noise. And you really need to replace the whole lot. And it's going to cost you nearly, 40,000 baht, which is nearly £1,000. And I said, bullshit, absolute bullshit, which it was. Because when I went out, the guy started going on, he said, look, your fan's cutting in and cutting out, and etc. And I said, yeah, it's supposed to do. It's run on a thermostat there, and if the main cooler needs help, the fan cuts into it. Oh, suddenly he realized that maybe I knew something about these things, and he backed off. Now, this car, when I got this car, I had to get the air conditioning fixed. And when I went in to get the air conditioning fixed, once again, something very similar. They started checking it out. I thought it needed gas. As it turned out, it needed the engine-driven aspect, the pump in the engine, air conditioning pump or whatever it is in there that they have. That needed to be replaced. But the initial quote I got to replace the whole thing, including ripping all the dashboards out and replacing the internal aspects of the air conditioning, they were going to charge me 30,000 baht for that. And I said, no. I said, I've got an old car here. I said, we'll go and find scrapyard and we'll get the bits from there. So they did fix it, and they had to do the internal part in the engine and then set it all up. And it cost me 8,000 baht as opposed to nearly 40,000 baht for them to do it. And then when they didn't understand that I could understand Thai language to a high degree. And then they were telling my wife that they thought, as I was a Farang European, that I would want everything brand new again and replaced with all new parts. Absolute bullshit. They would just want to push the price up, and you've got to be aware of that. So backstreet garages, you have to be very, very. I know many people have complained about it when they've gone in there for service, and it's cost them 4,000 baht instead of 1,000 baht. Luckily, I have found one pretty near my house, about 5 minutes drive from here. It's a tire garage and air conditioning. It does servicing as well. They're very, very good, and they looked after the pickup now for some time, and very, very cheap to deal with them compared with some of these backstreet garages. So I've been fairly lucky there. So anyway, as usual, I've rattled on a bit too long, and this is my first video in a while, and I've covered that aspect on driving a car here. If you've got any questions, any comments, please put them down below. I'll be interested in what you've got to say and what your experiences are. If you want any advice on anything, just ask me, and I promise I'll get back to you and let you know. And I'd also very much appreciate it if you would subscribe if you're not subscribed, and like it, and maybe you look forward to seeing my future videos coming on now that we've started again. So take care, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.